The divine misunderstanding. Zara Wade's head throbbed as consciousness returned. The taste of copper filled her mouth, and the acrid smell of burnt circuitry stung her nostrils. Her expedition shuttle, the culmination of 8 years of archaeological research funding, lay in smoking ruins around her. Status report, she croaked to her wrist computer, a habit from years of solo expeditions. Critical systems failure, replied the synthetic voice of Vega, her AI assistant. Location, Lemuria, Northern Hemisphere. Atmospheric composition, breathable. Warning, communication array destroyed. Distress beacon status, functional but limited range. Zara pushed herself upright, wincing at the stabbing pain in her ribs. Through the shattered viewport, she could see an alien landscape bathed in the amber light of twin suns. Rolling hills covered with iridescent blue-green vegetation stretched to the horizon, punctuated by towering crystalline formations that refracted light into prismatic patterns across the terrain. "Any settlements nearby?" she asked, fumbling for the emergency pack beneath her console. "Unclear. Sensors damaged. Recommend visual reconnaissance." Zara sighed. Her mission to study the ancient ruins of Lemuria, rumored to contain artifacts predating human galactic expansion, was now a survival mission. The Intergalactic Archaeological Society wouldn't send a rescue team for at least 3 standard weeks once they registered her distress beacon. With effort, she extracted herself from the wreckage, securing her sample collection kit and limited survival supplies. Her dark skin was lacerated with minor cuts, and her regulation short hair was matted with blood from a gash along her scalp. "Let's see what we're dealing with," she muttered, activating her data tablet to record the crash site. As an archaeologist specializing in extinct civilizations, Zara was accustomed to isolation, but being stranded on an officially uninhabited planet raised the stakes considerably. She had just finished cataloging the wreckage when she felt it, a subtle vibration through the soles of her boots. The tremor intensified, accompanied by a low rumbling that seemed to emanate from beneath the surface. Suddenly, the ground 20 meters ahead erupted in a shower of soil and vegetation. Zara stumbled backward, reaching instinctively for her sampling laser, a poor weapon, but better than nothing. From the earth emerged a figure unlike anything in Zara's extensive xenobiological database. Standing nearly 2 meters tall, the being had luminous teal skin that rippled with patterns reminiscent of flowing water. Its willowy frame supported 4 upper limbs and a head crowned with crystalline protrusions that caught the sunlight, creating halos of refracted color. Most striking were its eyes, large, faceted organs that shifted between amber and violet as they fixed upon Zara with unmistakable intelligence. Zara froze, her training abandoning her in the face of this unexpected encounter. Lemuria was classified as devoid of sentient life. Either someone had made a catastrophic error in the planetary surveys, or she had just made the discovery of the century. The being's lower limbs carried it forward with fluid grace. When it reached a distance of approximately 5 meters, it did something that shocked Zara even more than its appearance. It knelt, bowing its head until the crystalline crown nearly touched the ground. "Great hairless oracle," it spoke, the word somehow rendered in perfect standard despite the alien vocal apparatus. "The prophecy foretold your arrival when the twin moons aligned. I am Nyx, humble servant of the Crystal Spire Council. My existence is yours to command." Zara blinked rapidly, trying to process this turn of events. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said cautiously. "I'm not an oracle. I'm an archaeologist, a scientist. My ship crashed." The being, Nyx, raised its head slightly, faceted eyes swirling with what might have been confusion. "Your humility confirms the ancient texts. The oracle would arrive bearing no crown, skin smooth as polished crystal, speaking words of wisdom while denying divine status." "No, really," Zara insisted, taking a step forward. "My name is Dr. Zara Wade. I'm human, from Earth. I came to study ancient ruins, not whatever you think I am." Nyx rose with fluid grace and produced a small device from a fold in its diaphanous garment. The device projected a holographic image that rotated slowly between them, a crude but unmistakable representation of a human figure. Beneath it, symbols Zara didn't recognize scrolled in luminous script. The hairless oracle, depicted in the Crystal Codex, transcribed 16 generations ago from the vision dreams of the first seer. Nyx's voice took on a reverent quality. Smooth skin, no crystalline growths, bilateral symmetry, 5-fingered appendages. You match every sacred criterion. Zara fought the urge to laugh hysterically. Of all the planets in all the galaxies, she had crash-landed on one where the locals had a religious prophecy tailor-made for human appearance. Listen, Nyx, she began diplomatically, I need to reach the nearest settlement. My ship is damaged, and I need to arrange transport off-planet. Of course, Oracle. The crystal spire awaits your divine presence. I will guide you there. Nyx hesitated, then added, but first, may I offer you the collar of devotion? It would be my greatest honor. Collar? Zara questioned. Nyx produced an intricate circlet of what appeared to be living crystal, shot through with filaments that pulsed with internal light. To show my dedication to your wisdom and protection. I would be your first devotee, bound to serve your needs as you guide our evolution. Zara recognized a ritual when she saw one. As an archaeologist, she had studied countless cultural practices across the settled worlds. This had all the hallmarks of a ceremonial bond, one that clearly held profound significance for Nyx. That's very kind, she said carefully, but where I come from, we don't use collars to show devotion. Perhaps you could tell me more about your people as we travel instead? If Nyx was disappointed, the alien's fluid features showed no sign. As you wish, Oracle. The journey to the crystal spire will take 3 cycles of the lesser sun. I have a hover sled nearby that will ease our passage. As they traveled toward Nyx's hover sled, the alien explained more about Lemurian society. The Crystal Spire Council governed the scattered settlements, maintaining order through interpretation of the ancient texts. Resources were becoming scarce as the crystalline formations, living entities called spires, expanded their territory, consuming arable land. The prophecy says the oracle will restore balance, Nyx explained as they reached a clearing where a sleek, crystalline vehicle hovered inches above the ground. Your arrival couldn't be more fortuitous. The ascension ceremony is just 7 cycles away. Ascension ceremony? Zara asked, climbing aboard the hover sled. Nyx's patterns rippled in what Zara was beginning to recognize as excitement. When the council will determine whether to follow the path of preservation or the path of evolution. High Interpreter Vex favors preservation, maintaining our current harvest cycles and accepting diminished resources. But many of us believe evolution, developing new agricultural methods, is the only sustainable path. Zara's archaeological instincts tingled. This wasn't just a case of mistaken identity, she had landed in the middle of a societal inflection point. As the hover sled accelerated across the landscape, Zara made a decision. Her rescue was weeks away at best. Until then, she could observe this previously unknown civilization, a professional opportunity beyond her wildest expectations. If playing along as their oracle gave her access and kept her safe, wasn't that the rational choice? Tell me more about these paths, she said to Nyx. And about the Crystal Codex. I want to understand my role in your society. Nyx's patterns glowed with pleasure, and the alien launched into an elaborate explanation of Lemurian history and belief systems. As the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the crystalline landscape, Zara recorded mental notes for what would undoubtedly be the most extraordinary field report in the history of the Intergalactic Archaeological Society. The hoversled crested a ridge, revealing a breathtaking vista below. A vast valley cradled what could only be the crystal spire, a monumental structure that seemed part architecture, part living organism. Its translucent surfaces captured the fading sunlight, transforming it into a beacon of multicolored brilliance. Your divine home awaits, Oracle, Nyx said reverently. Zara swallowed hard. It's magnificent. With your arrival, a new age begins for Lemuria, Nyx continued, the alien's voice vibrating with emotion. I pledge my life to your guidance. Where you lead, I will follow. What you command, I will execute. Your wisdom will reshape our world. The weight of Nyx's devotion settled uncomfortably on Zara's shoulders. She was no deity, just a scientist with a broken ship and a rapidly evolving survival plan. Yet looking at the awe-inspiring crystal spire and the earnest alien beside her, she couldn't help but wonder if her accidental arrival might indeed change this world, just not in the way its prophecies had foretold. Let's start with understanding each other, Zara said carefully. No pledging lives, but I'll help if I can while I'm here. Nyx's patterns pulsed in what seemed like confusion, then acceptance. As the oracle commands. The hover sled descended toward the crystal spire, carrying Zara into the heart of a civilization that awaited guidance from their hairless oracle, a role she never asked for but now couldn't escape. At least not until her rescue arrived, if it ever did. Prophecies and revelations. The crystal spire gleamed like a massive multifaceted jewel in the morning light as Zara stood on her balcony overlooking the Lemurian capital. 7 days had passed since her arrival, days filled with elaborate ceremonies, political maneuvering, and careful observation. Her quarters, a cavernous chamber with walls that shifted color according to her mood, had been prepared generations ago for the prophesied oracle. Vega, update the field journal, Zara whispered into her wrist device, keeping her voice low. The AI was her only connection to her true identity as council members might enter unannounced to seek divine guidance. Day 7 of unexpected cultural immersion study, she began. The Lemurians possess technology far beyond what planetary surveys indicated, hover transport, bioreactive architecture, and some form of telepathic connection to the crystalline formations they call spires. She paused as patterns of light rippled across her chamber walls, announcing a visitor. Nyx entered, the alien's teal skin pulsing with agitated patterns Zara had learned to recognize as anxiety. Oracle, High Interpreter Vex has called an emergency council session, Nyx said, bowing slightly despite Zara's repeated requests to stop. He claims to have discovered new passages in the Crystal Codex regarding the Ascension ceremony. Zara nodded, slipping into the formal robes she'd been provided, garments woven from living crystal fibers that adjusted to her body temperature. I'll be ready momentarily. As they walked through the spiraling corridors of the spire, Nyx moved closer. Be cautious, Oracle. Vex has gathered considerable support among the Preservation faction. They whisper that a true oracle would have already performed the communion ritual with the Elder Spire. This ritual, it's dangerous? Zara asked, though she already suspected the answer. No Lemurian has survived direct neural contact with an Elder Spire in 12 generations, Nyx confirmed. But the Codex says the oracle would commune without harm. Perfect, Zara thought grimly. A convenient test she couldn't possibly pass. The council chamber occupied the heart of the crystal spire, a vast amphitheater where 50 Lemurians with crystalline growths of varying elaboration sat in concentric circles. At the center stood High Interpreter Vex, his form more crystal than flesh, faceted eyes cold as he watched Zara enter. The oracle honors us, Vex announced, his tone carrying unmistakable skepticism. Perhaps today she will demonstrate the communion powers described in the newly uncovered texts. Zara stepped forward, her archaeological training in diplomacy guiding her response. I'm interested in these new texts, High Interpreter. In my divine studies, I find context essential before performing sacred rituals. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Vex's crystalline features hardened. The texts are clear, he said. The true oracle communes with elder spires at will, extracting wisdom from their ancient memories. Unless, his voice took on a dangerous edge, our visitor is not the oracle at all, but an impostor. The chamber erupted in gasps and agitated light patterns. Nyx moved protectively closer to Zara, all four limbs tensed. Perhaps, Zara countered, projecting confidence she didn't feel, the High Interpreter might share these new texts with the Assembly? In my experience, prophecies often contain nuances lost in hasty interpretation. A low hum of approval came from several council members. Vex's crystalline growths darkened momentarily before he gestured to an attendant who brought forward a floating crystal tablet. The passage is specific, Vex declared. The oracle's flesh shall merge with the elder wisdom, drawing forth secrets of our ancestors without harm. Through this communion shall the true path be revealed. Zara studied the displayed text, recognizing symbols she'd been secretly studying in her quarters. Something wasn't right, the glyph formation was different from other sections of the codex she'd examined. May I? She asked, reaching for the tablet. Hesitantly, Vex allowed her to take it. Zara ran her fingers over the surface, feeling microscopic irregularities in what should have been perfect crystal. This passage appears to have been altered, she said, loud enough for all to hear. The crystalline matrix shows signs of recent manipulation. Blasphemy! Vex thundered. The oracle accuses me of tampering with sacred texts. Not accusation, observation, Zara replied calmly. As you said, a true oracle would know these things. The council chamber fell silent. Zara had gambled, using her scientific knowledge to project oracular wisdom. An elderly Lemurian with pale blue skin rose slowly from the inner circle. There is a simple resolution. The Elder Spire chamber lies below. If our visitor is the oracle, communion will reveal all truths. Trapped. If she refused, she'd be exposed as an impostor. If she attempted communion with whatever the Elder Spire was, she risked death, or worse. I accept, Zara said, meeting Vex's triumphant gaze steadily. But first, I require preparation time with my first devotee. Back in her chambers, Zara paced frantically while Nyx watched with concerned eyes. The Elder Spire will destroy your neural pathways, Nyx said bluntly. No non-Lemurian could possibly survive the connection. We must flee before the ceremony. And go where? Zara asked. My distress beacon is still transmitting, but rescue is at least 2 weeks away. She paused, studying Nyx carefully. You'd help me escape? Even though you believed I was your oracle? Nyx's skin rippled with complex patterns. I've observed you, oracle, Zara. You study our ways, ask questions, seek understanding rather than worship. I've come to believe the prophecy was misinterpreted. Perhaps the oracle isn't a divine being but a bridge between worlds, someone who brings new perspective. Zara stopped pacing. Tell me about these elder spires. What exactly are they? Living repositories of ancestral memory, Nyx explained. Our oldest and most revered elders transfer their consciousness into the crystal matrix upon death. Over millennia, they've formed a collective intelligence that guides our evolution. Like biological computers, Zara mused. Nyx, do you trust me? With my existence, came the immediate reply. Then help me access the original Crystal Codex, not Vex's version. I need to see what it actually says about the oracle. Hours later, hidden in ancient archives beneath the spire, Zara made a discovery that changed everything. Translating the original pictographs with Nyx's help, she uncovered the truth. The prophecy never mentioned a divine being. The Lemurian word translated as oracle actually meant observer or witness in its original context, someone from beyond who would help Lemurians see themselves clearly. More crucially, the communion ritual described a technological interface, not direct neural contact. The observer would use a crown of seeing to safely access elder wisdom. Vex has been manipulating the texts for years, Nyx realized, patterns shifting with anger. Reinforcing superstition to maintain control. Zara held up an artifact she'd found among the archive's relics, a circlet of dormant crystals similar to the living technology the Lemurians use daily. I think this is the crown of seeing, she said. Not divine magic, just forgotten technology. When the time came for the communion ceremony, Zara stood before the council wearing the ancient interface crown. Vex watched with barely concealed anticipation of her failure as she was led to the Elder Spire chamber, a cathedral-like space dominated by a massive crystalline formation that pulsed with internal light. The false oracle will now be judged, Vex announced to the assembled council members. Zara approached the Elder Spire, the interface crown humming softly against her temples. She placed her hands on the crystal surface, feeling a gentle vibration respond to her touch. What happened next astonished everyone, including Zara herself. The crown activated, creating a buffer between her human mind and the vast consciousness within the spire. Rather than being overwhelmed, she experienced a controlled flow of information, images, emotions, and knowledge from countless Lemurian generations. Most importantly, she accessed the original memories of the first seer who had authored the prophecy, a Lemurian scientist who had encountered humans centuries ago during an early exploration mission. The seer hadn't prophesied a deity but predicted that reconnection with humans would help Lemurian society overcome technological stagnation. The Elder Spire glowed brilliantly as Zara stepped back, the interface crown preserving her consciousness while translating the ancient wisdom. The prophecy speaks not of worship but partnership, she announced to the stunned assembly. Your ancestor, the first seer, encountered humans generations ago. She foresaw that our species would someday help each other evolve. She turned to Vex, whose crystalline features had darkened with fury. The path of evolution was always intended, not through divine intervention but through cultural exchange and technological advancement. The elders within the spire confirmed her words, their collective consciousness projecting images visible to all present, the true history, free from Vex's manipulations. In the days that followed, Lemurian society experienced upheaval and renewal. Vex and his closest supporters were removed from the council. The interface crown became a tool for regularly consulting the Elder Spires, democratizing access to ancestral wisdom. Nyx was appointed to lead a new diplomatic initiative, preparing Lemuria for official contact with the Intergalactic Alliance once Zara's rescue arrived. 2 weeks later, as the rescue ship descended through Lemuria's atmosphere, Zara stood beside Nyx at the landing site. Will you return? Nyx asked, the alien's patterns showing emotions Zara had learned to read as hopeful affection. Wild stellar phenomena couldn't keep me away, Zara replied with a smile. I'm an archaeologist, this is the discovery of a lifetime. Besides, someone needs to help negotiate Lemuria's first interplanetary cultural exchange program. Nyx's crystalline crown caught the light of the twin suns. No longer your devoted servant, but perhaps your friend and colleague? I'd like that, Zara said, touching her hand to Nyx's in the Lemurian gesture of equals. No worship required. As the rescue ship landed, Zara reflected on how her accidental crash had fulfilled an ancient prophecy, just not in the way anyone had expected. She hadn't come as a deity to be worshipped but as a bridge between worlds that had once known each other and would now forge new connections. The hairless oracle myth would fade into history, replaced by something far more valuable, understanding between different beings who each had wisdom the other needed.